Hello. Well, today is a beautiful day and I am getting ready to go paddleboarding, but I felt compelled to find this old road in this farmer's field to share a story with you. And I felt it was really important today because I was sitting there enjoying my morning, and I scroll on TikTok now and again and I do a few things like that, but usually something intuitively calls me to talk about a certain thing, a certain story, a certain memory. And so I was sitting having my morning smoothie, and this video came on TikTok, and it was about a little 4-year-old girl who was shopping with her mom in the grocery store one day. She was sitting in the chair in the front, and they were going along, and they passed by this elderly man. And she looks over at this elderly man and she says, "Hello, old man." And he sort of, looks over and says, "Did you say hello, old man?" And she says, "Yes." And they come closer, and the mom allows them to connect, and they hug, and they start this friendship. They start this relationship that turns into a full-on friendship, where she goes at least once a week and visits this guy. And then they find out that this poor old guy had lost his wife, I think they said 4 years previous. He was very sad. He was very lonely. He was very distraught. And then comes this beautiful little girl who shows him love, unconditional love, in the grocery store. And so they're going along, and it's beautiful and it's simple. And she shows up to his doorstep one day and she knocks, and he doesn't answer right away. And he says, when she hugged me this time, she wouldn't let go. And so she's really emotional and really upset, and it's because she was worried about him. And it really put tons of emotion. I started crying, and I was thinking, why is this touching me so deeply? And then I thought, well, it's because I had the same thing. I had the same thing, and it was so beautiful. And I've gone through life and I've sort of almost forgot about it. And these videos bring me back to that. And so my experience was with a man named Ken Kreiderman. And he came into my life because he was my dad's best friend. I think they worked together, I'm not sure. And they started to hang out, and him and his wife would hang out with my mom and dad, and we started coming around, and this beautiful elderly man, which probably wasn't that elderly, he was probably maybe in his 50s at the time. I don't even know, because when you're so little, everyone seems old. But regardless, we'd go over there and he would hug me, and then he'd like nibble on my ear and do these things, and it was so endearing and so beautiful. And no one ever mistaken it for sexual or inappropriate or bad in any way. It was so beautiful and it was so loving. He loved me. He didn't have to, but we connected so close. And so I called him my second dad. I mean, he was known as Uncle Ken, and I would, write birthday cards to him, and I would sign to Dad number 2. And we just grew with this relationship. And there was times where we'd go visit, and I'd say, "Can I spend the night?" And my parents would say, "Yeah, sure." And I would stay by myself with him and his wife and just be with them. I don't even remember what we did, but it was just so beautiful and so innocent. And so, I went for years, and as I kind of got older, we started to, not see each other as much. I started going through, puberty and changes, and of course, as that happens, I started to have other stories told, other beliefs, other people thinking that's weird, other things were coming in, and it was making me sort of pull away from him a little, which probably is kind of normal. I think I was probably 13 or 14 at the time, when I remember that he had a birthday, and my parents wanted me to go, and I said no, I'm not going. And I remember the day exactly. I was sitting on my bed. I remember it so clearly, and I just said no, I'm not going. I don't want to go. So they didn't make me, of course. So they went without me, and time went by, and then he had passion for life for sure. He was a pilot. He had his own little, I think it was a 4-seater plane. He drove it all over the place. I went up a couple times, but I had motion sickness, so it wasn't really my most favorite thing to do. So I only went, I think, twice. But he went a lot, and he just absolutely loved it. It was where he loved to be. And there was one day, I think it was about 2 or 3 days before my birthday, I had gotten word that his plane went missing. And everyone was in a panic to find him. And, in these small planes, it probably takes 2 hours to drive from town to town, in the plane where it would take an hour to drive. So there's Quesnel and there's Prince George, and he got lost in between those two towns. And they couldn't find him. And they had the search out, and my birthday came and went. And I think it was about 2 days after my birthday, they finally found him. And his plane had gone down in the mountains in between, and he passed away. And unfortunately, they gave me probably a little too much information. He didn't die right away. He suffered quite badly. If they had found him sooner, he probably would have survived. And then there's this guilt in me that I had separated from him, and that I hadn't seen him on his birthday, and that would have been the last time I would have seen him, and I don't even remember the last time I saw him before he died. And all of these emotions were playing in me and tormenting me. And we went to his funeral, and I think it was probably the second person that I'd ever lost that was close to me, and it was so painful for me to have lost him. And it made me think of this little girl, and she's loving this man, and she's putting so much of her heart into it, and it made me afraid for her, because I know what that feels like to have lost someone. And he's quite a bit older. I think this old man, I mean, she's 4, and I think he's probably 80 or maybe even 90. I don't know how old he is. And then as soon as I had that emotion, I started to cry, because this thought came to my head that was like, exactly, like, it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. And that's what I got. I got this beautiful relationship with this man that didn't have to love me. He wasn't family. He wasn't anything. And my own father didn't know how to love me. He didn't know how to hug me in a way that wasn't more than just love, and Uncle Ken knew how. He knew how to make me feel so good, and I made him feel good, I'm sure. And it was just such a beautiful thing that it doesn't matter, because we all lose eventually. We all die eventually. But to experience that love, that unconditional love, gave me hope. I didn't even realize how important, how beautiful that relationship was for me growing up, because I was struggling. I was this little empathetic little girl that wanted to love everyone, and I was taken so differently from so many people. I was pushed away. I was told to go away. I was neglected. I was misunderstood by so many, but not by him. Not by him. And because I have that, I now have that little glimmer of hope for people, that we can learn to love each other without conditions. When I saw the Dalai Lama and what happened with him and that little boy, where he was, I don't know, he said he wanted to bite his tongue or something. It was something so little. And for us to look at it and judge it, it's absolutely crazy, because we don't know their traditions. We don't know the way they talk. We don't understand that that was the same thing. It was so simple and easy and beautiful, and it could have been such a growing, loving experience for that little boy and for him, that it gets lost in translation. So I pray that this little girl and this elderly man can continue their relationship and their love and show the world that it's just such beauty, and we can all do it and we can all share it, and there doesn't have to be anything other than that. Just love and kindness and compassion, and just be, have the confidence to be yourself and be in this moment. Look at this beautiful place I'm in. It's like stunning out here. It's in the middle of nowhere, sure. I always say I gotta watch out for bears. I gotta listen. I gotta be aware. But that also helps me be in this moment. And now I get to go off to a local lake, paddleboard with this weather, think of my Uncle Ken, think of the beauty that was, the gift that I had, the gift that I gave. And when people say that I'm love and that I am good and that I am worthy and all of these things, I have to start saying thank you. And yes, I agree. I help people. I love people. I always have. I want to love them. I want to learn how to let them love me, because my goodness, it feels like heaven on earth. So let's do that. Let's practice a little bit of love, a little bit of compassion, a little bit of connection, letting go of the rules, letting go of the stories, and just be. Thanks again for joining me on this beautiful day. Have yourself a wonderful day in the sun, face to the sun, and talk soon.